Hello, welcome back. If I could ask you to take your seats. We have Kevin Cunnington, the Director General of the Government Digital Service.
Hello. Lights are bright. Welcome and thank you all for coming. It's a great honour for GDS and for the UK to be hosting us here today. If I may, I'm going to talk us through our story around innovation through the three phases of GDS. The first phase simply to build confidence, the second phase to build capability, and the last phase I'm going to focus on is transformation, collaboration, and notably innovation. So here we go. Before we start, let's remind ourselves of the GDS purpose. The GDS is here to help government work better for everyone by leading digital transformation of public services. Now, a year ago, that didn't say public service, it said government service, but you've heard from Paul Maltby earlier today that we've extended our reach with a local digital declaration, and we now work closely with local authorities as well. And that's one of the things I'll touch on later in the collaboration theme. So before we start, how did we get started in GDS? Well, the first phase was all around building confidence. We hadn't built digital services before, we weren't sure if we could do it. How do we get started? Part one of this was to consolidate the nearly 2,000 websites that pre-existed across government onto gov.uk. So gov.uk is broadly 400,000 pages of content. Just by way of context, the UK population is roughly 66 million people. Broadly, 1 in 5 of us, about 12 million, interact with gov.uk on a weekly basis. And on a daily basis, we have about 3 million visitors. Over the lifetime of gov.uk, we've served up 16.6 remarkably accurate pages of content for users. So you get the sense this was a real confidence boost for GDS, consolidating all the websites that pre-existed into one single front door to government. The second thing that we did was called the Exemplar programme. We set out and we encouraged departments to build 25 exemplar services just to get the hang of it. The Institute for Government recognised recently that from those 25 services we built in 2014, that number has now soared to nearly 800 in 2018, which is remarkable given where we started. And we've highlighted a few of the programmes here in the Circle of Life to give you an idea, but for those of you who are resident in the UK, you'll probably recognise that most of the interactions we have today are with government are digital. Called out my two favourite applications, my two favourite digital services, and they are apply for a fishing licence and get your divorce online. And you've got to figure, by the time you've digitised fishing and divorcing, you've pretty much covered the waterfront. And so we pretty much have. The one thing we would caveat this with is, this is really about digitisation, not about transforming services. And you heard John Manzoni say that earlier, that we've actually done a good job on digitising, but we've not always got to the back of the systems and transformed them. So I'll talk a little bit about transformation later. So phase one, all about building confidence. Phase two, all about building capability and tools. And that comes in two parts. Firstly, capability. So there are 17,000 digital data and technology professionals in government. And over the last year or so, we have created 38 distinct job roles, and we have allocated each of those 17,000 people to one of those job roles. So for the first time in government, we know exactly where everybody is, what they're doing, what grade they're at, and what job they do. And in a time like Brexit, where we have to move people around to accommodate and deal with surge, that's been incredibly useful to have that grip on all the people that work in our profession. The second thing we've done, and for the lucky folk who are in the front rows, you've been provided with a book called the GDS Academy, and indeed that is a picture of the London-based GDS Academy. GDS Academy is now 5 years old. GDS Academy exists to train civil servants in digital data and technology. And as part of our 5th anniversary, we celebrated the fact we'd trained 10,000 civil servants in digital data and tech, which is a truly industrial scale of training. About 2,000 of those guys have gone on to be practitioners, But just as importantly, 8,000 of those people have gone on to understand digital data and tech, and they're no longer worried about it. Indeed, they're advocates for it. And that gives us really early insight when we talk about policy nowadays or operational businesses in where digital and the like can help in defining those services. So we talked about 10,000 graduates. The permanent academies are based in Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle and London. We've run various pop-ups in Newport, Plymouth, Birmingham, Scotland, and most recently in Canada, where the Canadians have set up their own digital academy based on the work we've done here in the UK. Most recent courses that we're now focusing on, beyond digital and agile, are around the Emerging Tech Development Programme. The first course, which you'll find in your booklet, is on AI, machine learning. We plan to extend that into distributed ledgers, the Internet of Things, augmented reality, whatever we think comes next. The other thing we're working on in government is trying to train 1,000 people a year in understanding data. In the way that we've done a fantastic job in training thousands of people not to be worried about digital data and tech or digital and tech, we now want to extend that into data and create 1,000 new people with an awareness of data every year. If you didn't get the book, if you're sat at the back, good news, it's on gov.uk, as everything I'm talking about is. So that is us building capability, and like all adages, it's all about the people, but also for us, it's all about building tools to take some of the friction out of building services. So I've got 3 examples of tools that we've built. Gov.uk Notify is a service that people can embed in their own service, and it sends SMS or email reminders to citizens. Good examples are things like the NHS using the text service to thank people for donating blood. Good examples are Passport Office using it to say, thanks, we've received your passport, we're processing it, don't call us, you should have it back with you within a week. And this just saves time and energy and gives a citizen a better experience. And we have, over the last 2 years, sent out 25 million notifications, believe it or not. So this operates at real scale. But the purpose of showing you this graph was onefold, really. It took us, and you can't see this terribly easily from the graph, but it took us 2.5 years for this service to be incorporated in the first 500 services. 2.5 years. At the current run rate, and you can see it, we will incorporate the next 500 in 6 months. So the pace of change of transformation in government has massively accelerated over the last 3 years, where we're now doing as much in 6 months as we did previously in 2.5 years. Another good example of a service that's scaling is Gov Wi-Fi. Gov Wi-Fi allows civil servants to walk into any public building, and where Gov Wi-Fi is available, you'll immediately be logged on to the local Wi-Fi service. Now, I can't tell you from I can tell you from a personal level, but just the unprecedented joy of travelling around the UK in public service buildings and simply being able to go into a building and the Wi-Fi works. Compare and contrast that to the old system, where you'd have to go and hunt down someone who jealously protected the Wi-Fi to try and give him your passport. And we've rolled this out now to 500 places. That includes schools, hospital, overseas embassies, and even border force boats. So it is becoming ubiquitous. But one of the things we've recognised is that we think we've reached the maximum kind of velocity of take-up simply because we had a set of manual processes that we needed to configure on people's behalf to roll out Gov Wi-Fi. So we've now fully automated the process. So if you're a civil servant anywhere in the UK, you can look up this service on gov.uk, and you can configure it for yourself, for the benefit of yourself and all your fellow colleagues in your local work environment. And that, we hope, will see this take off even further than it has. And the point here is, there is absolutely tremendous built-up demand for these services in the wider public sector already. My last example is Gov Verify. Gov Verify is the UK's identity programme. Unlike some countries, the UK doesn't have a national identity scheme, so we can't use a national identity card. But like many other countries, government services are only a small fraction of a citizen's daily usage of their daily identity. So here in the UK, citizens only interact with government about 2% of the time. 98% of the time, they're interacting digitally with their bank, e-commerce, or social media. And when we set out to create GovVerify, we decided we'd do 4 things. One is we would set the standard, which we did with GCHQ. Those standards for how you identify someone have been adopted by Europe, notified by Europe, and adopted by the US, and the US recognizes their standards are based on the UK. We also said it was vitally important to get this to a price point that was a commodity price point so that private sector as well as government could use it, and that we believe we've done. We said we'd build secure and scalable platforms, and again, that we've done. And what we wanted to do was create widespread adoption in government before pushing this out into the private sector. And if it's not obvious, for all of the above reasons, we took the policy decision of trying to create identities in the private sector using private sector identity providers so that we could meet both the government demand, but also clearly this 98% of private sector demand as well. And this graph shows it's beginning to work. So the bottom line shows the number of people who on a weekly basis sign up to be verified and verified themselves, and that's been pretty consistently 50,000 people for quite a while now. The top line shows the number of people who sign in, and what you can see is we're getting considerable reuse now of those people who were initially verified. At peak, just before Christmas, for every person that signed up for a new Verify credential, 4 people were logging back in. So we're really seeing this beginning to operate at scale now. And this is an example of one of our identity providers plugging their service. For those that don't recognize it, that's Leicester Square. That's quite a big deal to take up a billboard in Leicester Square and plug your identity service. And you can see in the bottom right, it's got the Verify signature. So why is this important? Verify signals a real change in government's attitude to how it builds innovative public services. So previously we talked about doing it ourselves, scaling it ourselves, but the trend now is to work closely with the private sector to ensure that we use their skills that we don't have in building innovative service. And this is the first time we've tried it at this scale, and this is a good segue into the 3rd generation of digital services here in the UK. So we typically describe our 3rd generation services as transformation, collaboration, innovation. And I'm going to skip quickly over transformation and collaboration because this is an innovation conference, so I thought you might want to know about innovation. So in transformation, for those of you lucky enough to be in the front rows, we have given you a copy of the 7 lenses of transformation. This is the government's official handbook in how to do transformation. It was designed by Matthew Vickerstaff, who was on the panel recently, and my organisation. And it's a good practical guide to if you're going to transform services, not just digitise them, what you need to do. And we've printed 4,000 copies of this book so far and given them all away. So if you weren't lucky enough to be in the front rows or you can't find one on the floor somewhere, good news, it's on gov.uk and we'll get some more printed. So that's what we're doing to help professionals in government understand transformation. I'll go quickly through this because I think Paul Maltby talked about GDS, MHCLG work very closely to produce the local digital declaration. This is a real shift in British government with 150 local authorities voluntarily signing up to be part of this local digital declaration. And that commits them to using GDS standards, GDS assessment methodologies, GDS platforms as part of their build out of new services. So a real shift in the collaboration between the centre and local authorities. What I want to spend the last 10 minutes talking about is innovation. So repeating the message, for us, innovation is all about creating a partnership with the private sector to bring their value add to the services that we build. And I'm going to explain this through the lens of the 4 initiatives that we currently have on, the Innovation Survey, the AI review that we're conducting, the GovTech Catalyst Venture Fund that we apply across government, and then finally, the Innovation Strategy. So the first, the Government Innovation and Emerging Tech Strategy is a landscape view of all the technologies and all the techniques that people were applying when we published this at the start of 2018. If you've not seen it, it's on gov.uk, provides a very handy starting point for trying to understand what UK government is up to. We announced the AI review around about the start of the year. It's due to be published in spring. This is government figuring out where it can use AI, machine learning in government. And I want to stress, we're not waiting to start, we've already started. So a good example of us using AI today is on gov.uk. So gov.uk, as we know, is 400,000 pages. We used to have a process that took 18 months to go around each of those pages using a human being, reading those pages, taking the keywords and using those as meta tags so that search engines could find them more easily. We have, for the first time, replaced that manual process with a machine learning algorithm that does that on exactly our behalf. And we started to look at this 6 weeks earlier, and by 6 weeks later, we'd done it. And that was a process that previously took 18 months of human effort, all replaced in a matter of weeks by a machine learning algorithm. So part of the message is you don't need to wait to crack on with this stuff, although we will come out with a more definitive report on how to do these things later in the next few months. GovTech Catalyst, essentially a venture fund for government to invest in innovation. And rather than me tell you, I thought I'd show you the video.
Public sector organisations face huge and complex problems, like tackling loneliness, cutting congestion and improving recycling. Sometimes these problems can be solved by private sector innovative technology. However, in the past, it's been difficult to develop a technical solution to the real-world problem. We want to bring emerging technology into government and grow the GovTech sector. This is where the GovTech Catalyst programme comes in. £20 million has been made available over 3 years to fund technology that will reduce costs and provide better services. It gives companies of all sizes an insight into the challenges faced by government and gives them time and money to trial their technology. How will it work? UK central government, devolved administrations and local public sector organisations submit a problem that they need help to resolve. This issue must require a digital answer, should cut costs or improve services, and the organisation must be prepared to buy the solution. These problems are evaluated by experts across government who draw up a shortlist. The final problems are picked by the GovTech steering group. Once chosen, each problem becomes a competition, and there will be 15 competitions in total. For each competition, private companies now offer their technological answers. 5 companies per competition will receive up to £50,000 to develop a prototype of their solution in 12 weeks. These 5 prototypes are evaluated, and the best 2 from each competition are given up to £500,000 over 12 months to develop their product. All final products will be available to the whole public sector to buy, potentially leading to millions of pounds in savings. To find out more, search for the GovTech Catalyst on gov.uk.
So what I find fascinating is the fact that government is prepared to invest in 5 prototypes and only take 2 forward. That's a real sea change for government, where previously, if we'd started something, we'd carry on regardless. The built-in redundancy is a big change in the way we look at innovation and recognises we're not going to get it right every time. We're mostly going to get it right, but sometimes we might just have to say we didn't. The first 3 challenges, just by way of interest, because I love talking about the diversity of the challenges. The first is an AI-related challenge. It is looking for terrorist images on the web so that we can pull them down. The second is looking at tracking commercial waste, potentially using distributed ledgers. And the third I find fascinating. The third is Monmouthshire County Council trying to tackle loneliness in rural communities. So as you can see, real problems, real spread of challenges that we're trying to address. So the final thing I want to talk about was the innovation strategy, and this again is due out in spring. This is a picture of my minister actually doing the hard work himself. I need my specs on for this because this is all hot off the press. He's been all over the UK, literally, from the Microsoft reactor in Shoreditch to the School of Informatics in Edinburgh. He's spoken to tech startups, departments and academics. The key themes we expect the innovation strategy to address will be bringing emerging tech into government. How can we make it easier for government to adopt emerging technologies? 2, capability, of course, but it's not just the practitioners that need to be digitally literate. Everybody needs to have more awareness of these things. 3, standards, and the feedback from our teams is they feel more empowered to innovate when they understand the tramlines in which they should operate. And the 4th is government data. It should be easy for us to identify, easy for us to find. We should know that handling it will be secure, and we should know what the ethical boundaries are for handling data. So they will be the key themes of the innovation strategy. And then final remark from me, innovation is not just toys for technologists, far from it. Innovation is not there for innovation's sake. Innovation is here to help us solve real-world problems for real-world people. So with that in mind, this is my final video and slide. Thank you for listening.
A firefighter is here to save lives. Without the fire service, people would potentially die.
Somebody needs to be there to rescue anybody in a dangerous situation. As soon as you go into a burning building, it's smoke and darkness. You may not be able to see your hand in front of your face.
Temperatures could be in excess of 500 degrees. It's tough in there, especially with all this equipment on your breathing apparatus equipment. It's 20 plus kilograms. You've got your helmet on top of that, so it is difficult.
We do carry a thermal imaging camera which will then detect sort of signs of heat, which does give you a vague sort of layout of the room, but pretty much you're trying to travel through a building of smoke and darkness, and it's very difficult.
From an incident commander point of view, it provides us with an unprecedented level of situational awareness. It allows us to know where our crews are and also where they are in proximity to hazards, and also that in the event that something goes wrong, we can deploy rescue teams to go in to help them and have a much clearer view of where they are. It really just provides a safety blanket for firefighters.
This technology would help us massively because we'd know exactly where inside the building the firefighter has gone. Basically, we'd know if they've strayed from what the designated route was, or perhaps they've got disorientated for whatever reason, so we could get directly to them if they became stuck or in trouble.
If I was to wear the tracking device and I was committed to a building, it would make me feel safer, because I know that if any of my other communications fail, or if I'm needing assistance, then they're going to know where I am.
It'd take a little bit of weight off your shoulders, yes, definitely. Knowing exactly where everybody is and tracking movements would be beneficial.
Being awarded the GovTech Catalyst funding has allowed us to leapfrog ahead on our ambitions to develop this type of technology by many years.
Thank you.